1. Why wouldn't any of the other Zords work? This show has more than established the farts and the screwy and the That's going to be a couple of bleeps, isn't it? Hello there, heroes! I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge episode review. We have flipped the calendar from October to November, and the amount of time left for this Dino SuperCharge season has declined from months to mere weeks. Burgundy Ranger, a great source for Power Rangers TV info that you should all be following on Twitter, recently released information on where Power Rangers lies in the November TV schedule, and it seems that one of our fan outcries has finally been heard. Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge is set to end this month, November. At least its core story. The Christmas episode is not scheduled to air anytime in November. However, episodes 18, 19, and yes, the finale, 20, all are. I am thrilled that the finale arc that really starts with this episode is not going to be interrupted by another out-of-place, questionably canon holiday special. And in fact, it makes the Christmas special just that. Special, because it comes after the season and makes it serve as something of a bonus. Now, just so we're clear, I am perfectly aware that there are 4 Saturdays in November, but Power Rangers is not scheduled to air on November 26th. The Christmas special will be airing sometime in December. But hey, like I said, we have a finale arc to get started. Let's take a look at the 18th episode of Dino SuperCharge. The Rangers rock! Okay, not that kind of rock. This episode seems to start pretty much exactly where Warg World left off. The crew is walking back to the Sledge 1, which Sledge is upset is still not working. However, his fiancée has her own reasons to be upset. Where exactly has Sledge been, and why didn't he tell them that he was alive? After the ship crashed, Sledge found some eggs in a jail cell and hatched a very large, very bold plan, but he needed some time to set it up. So he made a deal with Heckle to take things over to keep the Rangers off of his tail. Meanwhile, he went to Hawaii, China, and Japan, perhaps having a little too much fun for Poisandra's liking while he was there. By the way, Wrench also fills in what's been a very big plot hole, explaining that most, if not all, of the ship's power is being used to keep the ship cloaked. It's nice to get that explanation to find out why it hasn't been found already, but couldn't that have been mentioned earlier? Oddly enough, with just 3 episodes left to go in the season, we get a new opening sequence. It's basically just updating the show to where it is now, adding Sledge back in for a few shots. We get the Aqua Ranger, we get the Ultra Zord, we get Xena Wing, etc. The most interesting new addition is this kind of Rangers of the Round Table shot that through the end of this episode hasn't been seen yet. Back in the story, Xena Wing hauls a big geode out of storage to show to Shelby, calling it impressive. Shelby's not really as impressed, it's just a pretty rock, but Xena Wing sets her straight. Geodes are basically Xena Wing's Zord eggs. He's able to combine elements of the physical and spiritual worlds inside of a geode, and that's how he created all 10 of the Zords. And he offers to show Shelby how it's done. After a comic relief scene so meaningless that I don't plan on mentioning it after this sentence, the Rangers meet up in the lab. Was it just me, or did anybody else get a little bit of the goosebumps when Keeper said, "Welcome, Power Rangers"? Even if they have all 10 of the Energems, they can't unlock their full power without destroying the Dark Energem. So, not only can it destroy them, but its very existence is holding them back. James has good news to report on this front. He witnessed that whole little Sledge speech at the beginning, so not only does he know where the Sledge 1 is, he knows that the Dark Energem is there. However, he also reports the bad news that Sledge is back and that Snide is working with him. The Rangers all really react with more fear than I think is warranted, considering their past history with Sledge. Chase suggests a full-out assault, launch all the Megazords, and stomp on the Sledge 1 until everything inside can fit into a paper shredder. Anybody remember don't escalate a battle unless you're forced to? But I have to admit that that would get the job done. Shelby points out one little problem with this plan though. When you shoot everything on the battlefield until the grass turns crispy, you can't guarantee that your target was destroyed. This is without even mentioning that Keeper has said in the past that he's not sure the Dark Energem can be destroyed. Shelby has her own plan, a quiet approach on foot, sneak onto the Sledge 1, retrieve, and again, somehow destroy the Dark Energem. Kendall, acting more as the team's technical mentor leader than just one of the Rangers, decides to go with Shelby's plan. And remember this for later, Kendall, the intelligent, logical thinker, chose Shelby's plan. More boring wedding stuff on Sledge 1. Poisandra drops a Beyonce reference? And Sledge agrees to move the wedding up to as soon as they can get the ship in the air. Snide, who's quickly gaining a reputation as the "can we quit screwing around and get to business" villain, tells Sledge that the Rangers are approaching, and he orders Medusa to go stop them. Medusa, as the latter part of his name would suggest, has an amulet that turns people to stone when they look at it. He hits everybody but Shelby, Philip, and James, who hide behind a large tree. Medusa hasn't had this much fun since he destroyed the Kyoryuger galaxy. Okay guys, Sentai 6 was one thing, but really? The Kyoryuger galaxy? It's getting a little bit on the nose. Maybe next season we'll meet a villain from the Ninja galaxy, or maybe the planet Kamen Rider. Shelby shoots blindly at Medusa, who taunts the Rangers to come out and face him. Shelby is shooting at you, you can see precisely where she... Anyway, the Rangers are saved by an unlikely person, Heckle. He attacks Medusa, telling him he knows what it's like to lose a world. Medusa retreats, and then Heckle just leaves. The three remaining Rangers look over their friends, with Shelby distraught that her plan led to 7 of them getting petrified, especially Tyler, of course. Meanwhile, I was wondering how 3 people were going to get 7 stone statues back to the lab when they didn't bring a vehicle. So, of course, it's just brushed over, and in the next scene, it's just done. Philip suggests using one of the Megazords to battle Medusa since they would be safe up in the cockpit. However, Keeper says that none of the petrified Rangers' Zords would work, and James points out that none of the remaining Zords has a cockpit. 1. Why wouldn't the other Rangers' Zords work? We've seen these Rangers call each other Zords all the time. Tyler called the Titanozord last week. This show has more than established that all you have to do is activate that charger and the Zord will show up. 2. What determines if a Zord has a cockpit or not? I'm thinking its size. There's going to be something that helps establish this a little bit later, but that seems incredibly arbitrary. 3. Why not just use the 3 remaining Zords anyway? They're all powerful weapons in their own right, and even if you can't get inside, you could just stay behind them. Anyway, using the same logic that a man who missed his flight is just gonna have to grow a pair of wings, there's only one option. Shelby's just gonna have to whip these folks up a new Zord. But Shelby's still down on herself, not only because she apparently was only half listening to Xenowing babble on and on about Zords, but because she's still upset that her plan didn't work out and feels like she made a mistake, and now she might make another mistake. One little thing, Shelby. Your plan was not a mistake. But more on that later. Philip gives her the whole "you're the only one that can help us" spiel because she's the one that knows about the dinosaurs, and Keeper tells her to pretty much get the heck over it, and just like that, she's ready to give it a try. I mean, besides, she watched the Tasty video on Facebook on her phone, and it's not that hard. 1 part metal, 1 part crystal, and 1 part dinosaur bone. Insert into a geode, seal, infuse with a warrior spirit, Keeper's in this case, and cook until it rolls off the table and burns through the floor. Keeper's able to sense this thing, so they follow it. But backtracking a bit, Shelby's choice of dinosaur was kind of interesting. She dismisses 1 because it was the size of a cat. Fair enough. But she dismisses another because it looked like a cross between a chicken and a crocodile. No thanks. Shelbs, this isn't a beauty contest. How strong was the thing? She ends up settling on the Spinosaurus, which, simplifying for the purposes of this video, is basically like a T-Rex but with a crested back. She also specifically mentions that it was large, so I'm guessing size does have a factor in whether a Zord has a cockpit and thus can form a Megazord.
Hey, kiddo, why didn't they pick Dinosuchus instead? Dinosuchus was huge and powerful.
You know, I don't really have a good answer for you, besides, Sentai footage.
Yeah, we all realize that, everyone. Just because we make a comment about something in the Power Rangers universe, don't mean we don't realize stuff happened in the Sentai 6 and the whatever and the how it is. Anyway, but they already had a charger for Dinosuchus.
That's very true. I mean, staying specifically in Power Rangers universe, the choice of Spinosaurus seems just kind of arbitrary. Sorry.
Ah well, at least they did mention, if briefly, that Shelby did make a charger for it too. Alright, back to you, kid.
Oh, and between choosing Spinosaurus and cooking it, we get an interesting scene on Sledge 1 that's basically a callback to the very first episode. Wrench is installing the Dark Energem to power the ship, but he's worried about doing it right, when Sledge just shows up and just slams it right in. Sledge's attitude about his ship reminds me of a line an arms dealer had in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Relax! If anything goes wrong, it's not like you're going to have time to worry about it. After another boring wedding blah 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 scene, we get back to following the Spinozord when it just suddenly stops. We don't get the words "just so happens" this time, but it just so happens that this is where Heckle is camped out. He fills the Rangers in on the villain's developments for the past few episodes, and explains that he has a vendetta with Medusa because Medusa destroys galaxies and thus worlds, just like Arcanon destroyed his world. Everything that Heckle has done so far was towards the purpose of trying to rebuild Sentai 6. Shelby asks how that could possibly happen when Medusa attacks. I wonder if the answer to that question is going to be a future story element. Anyway, Shelby pulls off actually a rather nifty sightless kick to the amulet, and the three Rangers insta-morph. Keeper hops into the battle and tells Shelby to go destroy the amulet. She sees Heckle moving towards it and questions him, but he actually just wants to destroy it alongside her. They do so, and of course this frees all the other Rangers. Shelby thanks Heckle, but he responds with a cryptic warning: get off this planet, and soon. Medusa calls the Magna Beam down on himself, and Philip wonders how they can fight him without a Megazord. The other Rangers are fine now, right? I mean, even if they need a minute to recover, their Energems are active again? Yeah? But no, we've got a new Zord to introduce, remember? Spino jumps out of the ground as if summoned by the question, and the Rangers form the brand new Dino Charge Megazord in Ankylopathy formation. Keeper joins the Rangers in the cockpit because there are two cats in this house named Sassy, and we get a Zord fight that's anticlimactic even for SuperCharge. 1 attack, 2 attack, 3 attack, finisher, boom. Medusa actually survives this, almost like there was an entire movie worth of Sentai footage for him or something. He summons up a whole mess of grunts, but this is when the other Rangers show up and they morph. This gives us 10 Rangers at once, but unfortunately it's a very quick fight. I do have to give them credit for one thing though. Only one pun, and actually very little talking period, just weapon names and attacks. Tyler activates SuperCharge, and hey, SuperCharge? Don't we have a new charger we can try out? Indeed, Tyler goes Stego-Spino formation, weakening Medusa. The Rangers then use a full 10 Ranger victory maximum. I guess that really is maximum, huh? And boom goes Medusa. If anything, he did buy Sledge 1 the time it needed, and it takes back off into space with the Dark Energem inside. But, I mean, the Rangers have infiltrated this ship in space using the Plesiozord before, so... Poisandra is still wedding, saying she wants to honeymoon in either Hawaii, China, or New York. But Sledge says that soon none of those places will be an option. With Snide saying it's time for Phase 2 of the plan to begin, they head to the bridge to watch the destruction of Earth. The episode wraps up with Shelby being proud of herself for doing what she thought she couldn't, especially after she caused the trouble. Even Tyler saying that she learned from her mistakes. More on this later, I promise. Then the Rangers have a meeting of the minds to put the pieces together. Sledge wouldn't just leave now, so he's got to have some kind of plan. And Heckle warned Shelby to get off the planet and soon, so it's at least possible, if not likely, that Sledge has a plan big enough to wipe out the entire planet. The episode ends with an ominous "to be continued." Let's dig up some super...
They should have made me a Zord!
I know, dude. I know. Can we just go ahead and dig up some super fossils?
Sure. Whatever.
Episode 18, The Rangers Rock. Pros, real drama and stakes. Nice to sneak in something new at the last minute. And another fantastic performance by Ryan Carter. Cons, another episode with a weird moral and character shift. Now it's the villains doing silly, meaningless things. And kind of a false to be continued. I can't decide how I feel about this episode, so we're going straight down the middle. The Rangers Rock gets 3 super fossils out of 5. Before I get into the pros and cons, I want to mention something that I'm sure I would be asked about if I didn't, but I'm not going to name specifically because of spoilers, and you'll understand why I say that in a second. The Sentai footage that this episode used had something more in it, something big, something really cool, something that I really would have loved to have seen. If you're the type of person that understood the Kyoryuger Galaxy reference, or you're the type of person that's even watching these videos, you probably know what I'm talking about already. So why am I playing it so close to my new fabulous overshirt? Because of Christmas. International airings, and the spoilers that they unfortunately bring with them, have revealed to me that this mystery thing that I'm talking about happening does not actually happen in the last 2 episodes either. However, the Christmas episode has not aired anywhere yet, at least not as far as I can tell. Wouldn't it be a nice Christmas present to get one last little surprise from the show, especially in a post-season holiday special where it'd be perfect for something temporary to happen? So for now, I'm going to reserve the right to drop this episode's score a little bit if this mystery thing does not actually ever happen, but for now I'm going to hold off. And if you really do need another little hint about what I could possibly be talking about, I will say that it's something that the toys say. And since the toys do say it and that information is kind of out there already, I'm not going to bar you guys from commenting on it as a spoiler. You can go ahead and talk about it if you want to. Don't spoil it if you can tell that somebody doesn't know what you're talking about, but if you want to have a conversation about it, go ahead. Alrighty, I think I've ended the past couple of videos with the cons, so I'm going to go ahead and start with them this time, so we can end this video on a more positive note. This is another episode of Dino SuperCharge with kind of a weird moral. The best one I was able to put together is believe in yourself even when you mess up. The only problem is, Shelby didn't mess up. Her plan made the most sense. Do you remember how I said that Kendall picked it? She was the one making the decision, so she was at least as much to blame as Shelby was, except that nobody was to blame because it was the plan that made the most sense. The only way you could make sure that the Dark Energem had been destroyed would be to get it into your gloved hand and blast it yourself. It's also another case where a character just shifts on the snap of a finger. Keeper literally just says the worst thing to do would be not to try, and Shelby just goes, "Oh yeah, that's right, okay, let's do it." I would have liked to have seen more of that lack of self-confidence from Shelby, since her character is usually so strong and confident. This episode saw the Rangers focusing on being Rangers for once, which was really nice. So, the apparent goofiness quota of the episode this time fell to the villains to fill. Sledge hadn't been back for 5 minutes of screen time before he was getting smacked around and henpecked by Poisandra. And to me, you could have cut that whole getting ready for the wedding scene and used that time to, extend the Zord fight. This might seem like a small thing, but it's part of a larger point for me. This episode is the first of either season, and feel free to correct me on this if I'm wrong, that I can recall to end with "to be continued." But think about this for a second. Why is this "to be continued"? Sledge has a plan to get the Energems, and the Rangers are waiting for him to make his next move. How many episode endings does that describe? There's no lingering thread here. It just seems like a cheap way for them to claim that this show ends on a 3-parter. A little housekeeping note attached to that point, actually. I've said in the past that when the show does multi-part episodes, I judge them both individually as well as giving them a combined score. However, I'm not going along with the "to be continued" at the end of this episode. Like I said, I just don't think there's enough on-carrying plot to make this different from any other episode of the week that just carries on. Sledge has a plan, something's going to happen, yada yada yada. And especially the finale arc, the final 2 episodes are Part 1 and Part 2. I'll get to their titles in a moment. So those 2 are going to be given a combined score, but I am not going to be including this episode in that score. Alrighty, now the good stuff. It was so nice to have drama and stakes again. We get an entire episode where the Rangers are being the Power Rangers. After that one scene that I keep saying I'm not going to refer to anymore, there was no cafe stuff, there was no silly friend, there was no wacky robot, just an entire episode of the Rangers being the Power Rangers, and it was so nice to have that entire time where it seemed like being the Rangers actually mattered to the Rangers. Hello, Spino Zord. We knew you were coming when we saw that blue logo in the Zord cockpit in that introductory footage from before. By the way, this is another episode where we got one of those, wow, would you look at this incredibly same Zord cockpit set things. But it was nice to see something new held back this far in the season. Considering that your 2-part finale probably isn't the best time to be introducing a new weapon, this was pretty much as late in the season as it could go. And while the Zord fight was quick, that did at least establish how powerful this thing is. One little thing though, if it's this easy to get a new Zord, especially one this powerful, shouldn't they be cranking out new Zords like cookies now? And another tip of the cap that I'm not actually wearing, to Ryan Carter, who continues stealing scenes as Heckle. There's something about him that I was just able to put into words today while I was writing this. He has this ability to deliver single lines with such a wide range of emotion. That one single line warning to Shelby to get off of Earth and soon conveyed such a range of emotion. Once we were enemies, now I'm not so sure. I really mean this. I want you to hear me on this. I don't know if you'll believe me. I really honestly think that he's the best actor this show has. Next week starts something of a bittersweet time. For the first time here on Orange Ranger Videos, a 2-season run of Power Rangers that I've reviewed all of is coming to an end. Next week is the beginning of the end of Dino Charge. Let's see how that shapes up with a look at the 19th episode of Dino SuperCharge, Edge of Extinction, Part 1. The Rangers find themselves needing help in their toughest fight yet as they do battle with Snide one final time, and Sledge's eggs hatch across the 4 corners of the Earth. That's going to wrap up another Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge episode review. Thank you guys so much as always for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking the like button right down below. Let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to the channel to see all the geekiness every week. And if you happen to have a couple of dollars you need something to do with, you can head over to my channel page and click that blue support button. And until next time, may the power protect you. After the ship crashed, Sledge found some eggs in a jail cell. To keep the Rangers off his tail, he had Heckle take things over while they believed that he had been destroyed. Back to the story, Xenowing hauls a big geode out of Shelby. Ooh, that's an entirely different show. Back in the story, Xenowing hauls a big geode out of Anybody remember Don't Escalate a Battle? My glasses farts! Sneak into the Sledge one, and then somehow snatch and destroy the Dark Energem. Philip suggests using a Megazord to battle Medusa since they would be safe from his amulet up in the cockpit. However, Keeper points out that none of the farts. Keeper's able to sense this thing, so... This gives us 10 Rangers at once, but unfortunately it's a very quick fight. And I don't know the rest of this. Before we get into the pros and the cons, I want to mention something that I'm sure I'd be asked about if I didn't. This point might seem kind of small, but it ties into something larger for me. This episode is the first of... How many episode endings does that describe? This is not a... farts. Okay, now the good stuff. Boy, it was nice to have drama and stakes again. We got an entire episode where the Rangers find themselves needing help in their toughest fight at... farts!